Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Di, and today I am bringing you my Manga Freakathon wrap-up. The Manga Freakathon was held the last week of October 2020, and it was held by Bizarre Individual, Mama Loves Manga, and the Panda Post. So this is the second year that they've had the Manga Freakathon, and I was really looking forward to participating in it this year. I'm so glad that it was hosted again, and I really had a blast participating. So I did participate in the bingo board challenge, and I will show you those results at the end of the video, but I will talk about what I read during the week, and that will cover this stack right here. So I will be talking about two complete series, The Voynich Hotel and Corpse Party Blood Covered. So let me put this down so that I can talk about these series because it's quite a lot to carry. So let's start with the Voynich Hotel. I have this in the 3 volumes that it has come out in. This is volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3. So the Voynich Hotel is by Domin Seiman, and it was published by 7 Seas, and it's rated teen. This series follows Taizo, who is not on any of these covers, but he has decided that he is going to make a change in his life. He has had some things happen to him and just needs to make a change. Take a bit of a breather, and so he goes on vacation, checks into this hotel, the Voynich Hotel. Humans aren't the only ones who check into the Voynich Hotel. Actually, when Taizo checks in, there's already a mangaka that's been staying there. But as we follow this story, we also get introduced to some assassins, some ghosts, and there's a myth about 3 witches that has originated from the island. So this story follows not only Taizo's stay at the Voynich Hotel, but we also get to check in with several other characters that we meet, not only in the hotel, but in the town that the hotel is located at. And that's pretty much where this series goes. I had picked this one up after hearing about it from Bizarre Individual, actually. He's talked about it a couple times on his channel, and I found them for a really good deal, so I decided to go ahead and pick them up. And I've had them for a while. I've been telling him I was going to read them, and I thought, you know what, I really got to get to him this year. So I did pick this up as my first read for the Manga Freakathon this year. I have to say that I had a hard time following the story in this series. I didn't think that there was a plot, or I didn't feel like there was one. At the beginning of the first volume, we meet Taizo, and so I thought that his story would be the central story, but I don't feel like there was a central story at all. I kind of feel like this series follows little snippets into all of the characters that we meet during his stay at this hotel. And there's a lot of characters. The art style is very unique, which is something that I really appreciated. It's not a style that I'm used to seeing in manga. And so that was very interesting to me. But all of the storylines were just, I don't know, I couldn't find anything that kind of brought everything together for me in this series. It just seemed like little snippets of everybody's life while Taizo's staying at this hotel. And that's a kind of story that I'm not really into as far as reading. Watching is probably something a little different. If something like this was presented on TV, it would probably be more interesting to me, but as a reading experience, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be. There were also a couple times where we have two sets of women who are drawn very similarly, and I had a hard time distinguishing them for a bit. When their storylines would overlap, it made it easier because I could see, okay, this is this set and this is this set, but because they're drawn so similarly, and it's one of the sets is this set right here, but yeah, there's another set of girls that look pretty similar to them, and I had a hard time distinguishing them. This is rated teen, and I believe teen starts at age 12 or 13 to 16, I guess, because that's usually where older teens start, 16 plus. And I do not feel like this is something for that age range. Like, for example, if you've watched me for a while, you already know that I have a daughter. And if my daughter picked this one up when she was 12 or 13, I would have had a big problem with it. There are several scenes of nudity, female nudity, depicted in here. And though it is not really graphic, like there's not a lot of detail to the nudity, but it's still nudity. There's also a few sexual situations. You don't see sexual situations, but there are situations where you know that sex has happened. And there's a scene the morning after with a couple of these characters, and like I said, nothing graphic has happened, but there is nudity. It was actually a pretty hilarious scene, now that I think about it, but I wouldn't have wanted my daughter at 12 or 13 to be reading something like that. There's a scene where one of the girls at the hotel is masturbating, and I don't think that I want my 12 or 13-year-old to see something like that either. So yeah, I don't think this was appropriately age ranged. And, you know, every parent is different, and so I'm just saying that from my perspective as a parent, I wouldn't have wanted my 12 or 13, even 14 or 15-year-old daughter probably reading this. This to me seems more like an older teen title than a teen title. So I'm really curious what it is that made this series be rated teen, because I don't think it is a teen title at all. A lot of the things that happen in this, I don't think teens would understand, not at that age anyway. And like I said, I'm basing this on the fact that I believe the teen age rating starts at age 12. Or even 13. But I don't think this is for young teens like that. I would more recommend this for an older teen. And yeah, a couple of the characters are assassins, and so we do see them going about their business, and it does get a bit gory. There is a scene where someone is contemplating suicide, and yeah, there's just a lot of things in here that kind of bogged down the story for me, and just, I didn't enjoy it. I know Bazaar does enjoy this series quite a bit, but for me, I couldn't connect with it at all. Like I said, I couldn't find a plot. There just seems to be too much going on in this series. And so I am glad that I finally read it, and I was able to find several of my bingo board squares in this series. But yeah, so that's the Voynich Hotel, volumes 1, 2, and 3. And then I decided to go ahead and finally read Corpse Party. So, Corpse Party Blood Covered Volume 1. This was a reread for me from last year. I read this particular omnibus for the Manga Freakathon in 2019, and I had always intended on continuing the series, and I just didn't do it. So this year was the year, because it had been a year since I read this, I decided to go ahead and reread this before I continued. So volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, and volume 5. So all of these are omnibus. I believe there are 2 or 3 volumes in each. This series is based on a video game, I believe, that is done by Makoto Kidoin, who, oh my gosh, this stack is pretty big, who does the story. So Makoto Kidoin, and the art is by Toshimi Shinomiya. This one is published by Yen Press, and it is older teen. So I will put this down, and I will just show you some of the covers as I talk about them. But this story follows a group of high school students who have just completed their school fair. They did really well. They were hosting a red bean soup stand. They were hosting a red bean soup stand for their school festival, and so they've just finished cleaning up, and they're back in the classroom and just chatting with each other. But it happens to be one of their classmates' last days at the school. She and her family are moving away, so they're a little bit bittersweet about the festivities of the day. But one of them decides to suggest that they do this ritual, and so that they can always be together. So they go ahead and they do this ritual, and immediately after they're done with the ritual, there's a huge earthquake, and they end up falling through the floor. The first thing that they notice after falling through the ground immediately is that they've been separated. Some of the students are together, while as others are alone, and they don't really know where they are. The thing that they do notice right off the bat, though, is that the place that they have landed is full of corpses, and we're talking all states of decay. Not only that, the place that they are at is rather run down. There are lots of holes in the ground. They do know they're inside some kind of building, and then they soon realize that they have been transported into, I believe it's called Taijin Elementary School. Don't take my word on the name of the school, but it is an elementary school, and it's an elementary school that was shut down many years ago because a horrific event had happened there. Several of the students were murdered by the principal's son, who was a teacher at the school at the time, and the events of the murder were just shocking. So the school has been shut down for a long time. But like I said, the school is in a state of decay. Several holes are in the ground. There are corpses everywhere. And then they start meeting the evil spirits. So basically the mission of the students becomes to find a way out, definitely, because they've noticed that they are unable to open any of the windows or the outside doors. They're only able to move within the school, and to find each other. They don't know where any of the other students have landed. They don't know if they're okay. They don't know anything. So the story follows them trying to do that, and along the way they discover that maybe what had happened at Taijin Elementary School wasn't exactly what was reported in the papers. So like I said, I read the first omnibus of this series in 2019 for the Manga Freakathon, and I had always intended on continuing it, but I just never did it. And I think it was because the series ended up being a lot more gruesome for me than I had expected it to be. Like I said, this is rated older teen, and there is a lot of blood and gore in this story. Like I had mentioned, there's the whole thing about the elementary school students being murdered. They touch on that story quite a bit as we go through this. There are bodies everywhere in this school in different states of decomposition. And in the very first omnibus, there is a very graphic scene of suicide by hanging, and it's something that stayed with me since I've read it. So when I was rereading the first volume, I was fully expecting that scene, and it was just as horrible to read and see as it was the first time. As the series goes on, there are more scenes of suicide by hanging, so know that going into this. There are also scenes of murder. There are scenes of dismemberment. Lots and lots of gruesomeness in the visuals. I think for me, this series would have worked a lot better as a light novel, because at least my mind, I was going to say your mind, but at least my mind kind of makes those scenes as they're depicted to me more palatable, I guess. I'm not even sure that's the right phrase to use, but it wouldn't have been as gruesome for me in my mind if I had read it in words as opposed to it being shown to me. And so, yeah. That, coupled with the fact that I was reading this series right before bed every night, I didn't have any nightmares. I'm not that squeamish about that type of stuff, but the content in this story is definitely not something that I'm not used to reading, but the scenes, seeing the drawings of the things that were happening, is definitely something that I'm not used to. So, yeah, I thought the story was pretty interesting. I had figured out a twist that was presented quite early, and I think that's just because my mystery reading mind always looks for things like that, and I had just picked up on something and I thought, okay, this is what happened, and it ended up being correct. But yeah, as we go through this series and we see all of the students that were presented to us at the beginning of this story, we do meet other people within the school. And yeah, so I did find the story interesting. There are several fan servicey type situations, and I think those are thrown in there just to kind of break up all of the seriousness and the gore. Fan service is not something that I appreciate, so I didn't really appreciate those scenes in this story, but I do understand that it might be something that's needed because of the content that's presented in this story. I'm interested to know what this plays like as a game, because I'm wondering how the visuals are. Like, I don't know, it just, to me, it doesn't seem like this kind of story would play out well in a game. You definitely would probably have different ways the story could go based on choices that you make in the game. But I know nothing about the game, so I'm just making guesses at what's happening in the game. But yeah, I don't think that this would be the type of game that I would play either, because like I said, the visuals definitely bothered me, even though the storyline is something that I am pretty used to reading as far as gory content. But the fan servicey stuff just wasn't for me. And like I said, I understand that people would need a break. But yeah, other than that, the story was interesting to me. It had a definite end. There was a section towards the end that I thought was pretty unnecessary. Like, there is like an epilogue. We get to see the characters after the events of this whole journey that they had. And something happens to one of the characters that I just thought was unnecessary to have happen to that character, and unnecessary for the story in itself. I mean, the story is already pretty long as it is, and that kind of put a sour note for me on what happened with these characters and how it kind of changed them throughout living throughout that situation. And yeah, I didn't like that part of the epilogue. So there is another part of the epilogue section that touches on something that I believe will lead us into the sequel to the series, which is called Corpse Party Book of Shadows. So I will let you know that I am already reading Corpse Party Book of Shadows. It is pretty hefty. It's over 600 pages, but it's a bind-up of 3 volumes. So as of right now where I am, I just started, and what happened at the end of this installment doesn't continue from where we see the very last scene in this installment. So I'm interested to see where the scene in this installment will come up, if it will at all. But yeah, so I am glad to have finally read this one as well. I do really enjoy the colors of these volumes, but due to the gruesome nature of the story, I don't think that it's going to be something that I will reread. Yeah, it would be something that I would consider reading again if it was in a light novel format, but yeah, I can't with the visual with the visual gruesomeness. So yeah, so I read all of this, and then Voynich Hotel again. I don't think this is going to be one that I reread again either, but I am glad to have been able to read this. I read 6 volumes, so I read the 3 Voynich Hotel and the 3 Corpse Party during the Manga Freakathon, and then I finished volumes 4 and 5 of Corpse Party within the next couple of days following. So yeah, I read this. I will put up a visual of my completed bingo board here so you can see what I was able to complete. I did not get a blackout, but I was able to get a bingo, which is something that I was not able to get in 2019, so that was great. And I purposefully started my reading for the Manga Freakathon this year with Voynich Hotel because I didn't want to screenshot the same scenes for bingo board blocks as I had done last year. And so yeah, I think I did pretty good this year, and I am very happy to have participated again, and I'm so glad that Bizarre Individual, Mama Loves Manga, and the Panda Post decided to host again. This is definitely one of my favorite readathons to participate in, and I look forward to participating again next year. As far as the next manga readathon I will be participating in, I believe that's going to be the 25 Days of Manga readathon that was just announced a couple days ago. I will link the Twitter down in the description box below in case you're interested in that one. It will also have a bingo board, but I do not believe that I will be participating in the bingo board. I will be striving to read a manga a day for 25 days. But definitely check out all the details on the Twitter down in the description box below. That one's being hosted by the squad from the Thirsty Thursday podcast, and I know everybody but one off the top of my head, so definitely check out the link below so that you can see all of the hosts, and yeah, that one should be great fun. So that's all I've got for you today. Let me know if you've read either of these series, and I'd love to hear what you thought of them if you did, or if you participated in the Manga Freakathon this year. Let me know what you read, or link me to a video if you've done a wrap-up. I'd love to see it. And so I hope you're all doing great. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And until next time, take care and smile always. Bye!